why the economy is heading for a new depression. In fact, I've been told my mom and take y'all monies out the bank now. Don't keep your money in the bank. This economy is going to go down, and I feel like banks are going to go bankrupt. And with everything going on, I feel like there's going to be another Great Depression. I feel like there's going to be another Great Depression. I don't know when. Might not be till 50 years from now, but there will be another Great Depression, and I believe that there will be another Great Depression. Just the way the economy is set right now, gas prices going crazy, inflation, price values going up with the people's pay not going up, bro. This is not looking good for everybody when it comes to, you're a rapper. If you're one of these big millionaires, you're good. But if you're like a regular person like us, just prepare. Be prepared, because it can happen whenever, wherever, and at any time. That's why everyone should have their money in cash. Don't keep your stuff in the bank, because the day that the government and the country goes bankrupt, we are fucked, literally, because everyone will be going to the banks, try to get money. Guess what? The bank's bankrupt. You can't get your money if the bank don't has the money. If the bank don't have the money, you can't get your money. Even though it's your money, you cannot get your money if the bank doesn't have the money to give you. That's why keep your money cash. That's the best and smartest thing to do. That's just my opinion. This is just my opinion. Hopefully they don't say anything about it, And I don't know why the government is trying to hide the fact that this is such a possibility. I feel like the government is really trying to hide the fact that this is a possibility. I don't know why, but they really are trying to hide the fact that this is a true possible thing that might happen. I don't know why. Like, we should be ready for things like this that happen. Because if it does happen and you're not ready for this, you're fucked. Literally, I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. Especially how the world is right now. And if the US gets into a stage where the Great Depression, it leaves our country vulnerable, which means Russia might even find us weak and might invade us. Literally. And that's just the truth. Am I speaking facts or cap, bro? Alright, what do y'all want to watch? Let's actually go watch this. Since I was talking about this. Let me get a tissue.
From a global pandemic to Russia invading Ukraine. Both of these events had a huge economic impact on economies around the world and might even be leading to recessions in many. But what if things get worse? When does a recession become a depression? And should you be worried? Let's find out.
Yes.
These are unprecedented times, as modern-day economies have never had to contend with a global pandemic, a war, and supply chain issues all at the same time. The decisions made during this period in human history and the impact they'll have on the future are unknown. However, we do know that due to current events, economies have slowed and inflation is on the rise.
Inflation,
along with increasing unemployment rates, bankruptcies, and falling consumer spending, are key indicators that an economy could be heading toward a recession. But what does that actually mean? And are recessions such a bad thing?
It means the Great Depression 2.0. I'm trying to say it's the Great Depression 2. The Great Depression 2. The sequel.
We'll dig into that, but first there's one thing we know without a doubt is bad. Something small that you probably do each and every morning. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Do you grab your phone, open a news or social media app, and start
pretty much. I wake up, I sometimes stretch. I love stretching. That feels so good. Then I get my phone to check my notifications. That's the first thing I do.
Scrolling, and when you finally found something that looks interesting, the actual story turns out
and then I get on YouTube. I get on TikTok.
To be dry, dense, and boring. It's the worst possible way to start your day. But don't worry, there's now a better way to wake up with Morning Brew. Morning Brew is a free daily newsletter that'll get you up to speed on topics that matter most to you in just 5 minutes. Their business, finance, and tech stories are witty, relevant, but most importantly informative, so you can start your day off with a concentrated blast of the news you actually want to hear. Like a 3-minute read on the real state of real estate, or a breakdown of Meta's new AI text-to-video generator.
That's actually something I want to do. I want to get into real estate, but it's very, very difficult, and it's going to be very, very hard to get into real estate. Um, with the way the world is right now, how the economy is dealing. Maybe like hopefully like 10 years from now, it's sorted. But right now, everything's going up. All the values are going up, and all our pays are going either staying the same, going down, or there's a bunch of unemployment.
They even have a mini crossword puzzle to start activating your brain in the right way. But to get it, you'll have to sign up for Morning Brew yourself. It's completely free and takes less than 15 seconds, so start getting smarter in just 5 minutes every day by signing up for Morning Brew at morningbrewdaily.com/infographics or click the link in the description. A recession is defined as a slowdown or shrinking of an economy over the course of several months. Many experts classify a recession as 2 consecutive quarters of declines in real gross domestic product, or GDP. Real GDP means that economic numbers have been adjusted to account for inflation so that they can be more accurately compared to other quarters of economic activity. This creates a more precise.
And aren't we in debt? Don't we owe like China like billions of dollars, bro? Oh, let me look this up. Is it on USA? Bro, this is another thing to be worried about that people ain't worried about. How America is in debt with China for billions. Is America the 31 trillion cross federal debt includes debt held by the public as well as debt held by federal trust funds and other government accounts is a very basic term. This can be thought of as debit that the government owes to other plus debit that it owns to itself. Now, I'm pretty sure America is debt. China. Get ready for this. China owns 99. Look, China owns $981 billion in US debt. That means we owe China almost $1 trillion. We owe China almost $1 billion. No, I mean not $1 billion. We owe them almost $1 trillion. We're at $981 billion that we owe China. We owe China almost $1 trillion. Bro, you know how much? Do you know what you could do with $1 trillion? You can end world starvation and do more than that. $1 trillion? I don't think there's a trillionaire. I don't think there's a living trillionaire right now. Literally, the richest man is billionaire. We're talking about trillion, almost $1 trillion. The U.S. owes more China than the 2 most richest men in the world combined. I'm pretty sure. Let's look this up. So y'all can see I'm not lying about the numbers. There it is. 981 billion. Now let's look at this statistic quick. Let's look at this other statistic. Let's see the richest man in the world. Okay, Elon Musk with 241 billion, and then you can go ahead and add Jeff Bezos with 151 billion. Here's the math right here. So in total, that would be around 300 something billion. I'm not going to do the direct math because that's nothing. You combine those 2 people, you can even add the top 3. The top 3, 200 something, 100 something, and 100 something billion. That's at least for let's say 400 billion, 500 billion. That's still not enough to cover America's debt that we owe China, which is $1 trillion. Almost $1 trillion. It's a total of 981 billion. Almost $1 trillion. Bro, are we cool? Are we? I don't even know we're allies. I don't even know if we're allies with China. If China's like another Russia, if China was Russia, Russia would be furious with us. They already don't like us. They would have probably attacked us by now. But as we know, if Russia goes to war with US, that's going to be a nuclear war, and nuclear war is not good at all. The world, that's probably going to how the world might end, is with a nuclear war. It's going to be too much radiation going on, too much stuff going on. But that's why. But it's, I don't know. And not to hate on y'all Biden fans, but I don't think Biden has the balls to go to, especially with Russia. I don't want war to happen ever. I don't want war to happen. Don't. Because that would be a nuclear war, and a lot of people will sadly pass away. Then we're going to have the aftermath of radiation, and stuff might mutate. Radiation is not a good. Anyways, back to the video. Sorry.
Precise picture of what the economy is actually doing and if we might be heading for a financial disaster. However, it's important to keep in mind that recessions are a normal part of economic growth. If you've ever bought stocks or followed the stock market, you know that there are inevitable highs and lows over the course of several years. Almost all economists agree that recessions are a part of the long cycle that economies go through in order to grow organically. Economies will continue to grow until something triggers them to slow down or shrink. There are plenty of reasons why this might happen, such as war, pandemics, or the bursting of a financial bubble like in the 2007 housing market in the United States. Another key factor that can indicate whether or not an economy is headed toward a recession is rising interest rates. It might seem intuitive that if high interest rates cause an economy to slow down, banks and governments should just keep interest rates as low as possible. But it's not that simple. Recently, interest rates have been on the rise, and for good reason. Increasing interest rates are a good way to slow down or reverse inflation. Inflation is when prices increase and result in a currency losing value as inflation rise, and for good reason. But it's not that simple. Recently, interest rates have been on the rise, and for good reason. Increasing interest rates are a good way to slow down or reverse inflation. Inflation is when prices increase and result in a currency losing value as consumers must spend more money than they used to in order to
pretty sure that's what happened in Cuba, is when I don't know for a fact, but everything started going up. People weren't getting paid, and I'm pretty sure people started losing jobs as well. I'm not pretty sure. I'm not 100%. I'm Cuban myself, but I don't know much. I know that when the new president or independent president took over, he wrote everything though. That's all I know.
Purchase some products. However you think about it, inflation is bad for the consumer and for the economy. This has been happening as we come out of the pandemic. People who kept their jobs or qualified for stimulus checks had money they could spend at the time as they couldn't go out and do things. When COVID restrictions became more relaxed, people spent that saved up money, creating a high demand for products. Unfortunately, the amount of products being produced was disrupted by factories shutting down and supply chain issues caused by the pandemic.
That's exactly, we have a loss of graphics cards, PS5s, and all that is skyrocketed because they were able to produce them, but they're not able to produce a high amount because they need certain technology to build those that they couldn't get much of. They got a certain amount, but they couldn't get a lot of them because of the pandemic. They was limited to.
Led to prices for everyday goods such as groceries and electronics to skyrocket. The supply for these goods cannot keep up with the demand, and prices are rising too fast for the consumer to keep up with. Inflation of prices has caused the Federal Reserve in the United States to increase interest rates so that people will be less likely to take out loans to rack up debt. At the time that this video
look at the banks trying to take loans, try to use us so they can get money
was made, people will be less likely to take out loans to.
Banks are a scam, bro. Banks, how you trust the government, but there's people that don't trust the government but keep their money in banks, bro. Y'all know the banks are part of the government, right? There's no reason why we should trust in this government or in any government at all. Every government at some point will crumble and fall. It has happened since day one of mankind. You see what happened to Rome, the golden age of Rome. You see what happened to the golden age of Egypt. You see what happened to the empire of Japan. You see what happened to all these places. Even or Alexander the Great, all these other people, how they were kings and they were respected, and then they were eventually overthrown by the people and they crumbled, or they went to war and their government crumbled. Even in the 1700s and stuff like that, people losing territory to other countries and stuff like that, and governments crumbling. It will eventually happen to every single government, every single country, in every single place, sadly, but that's the truth. And then there's going to be a point in the world where none of that matters, because at the end of the day, we might get hit with a bunch of meteors and stuff like that from space, and stuff like that, just like it did with the dinosaurs. Even the dinosaurs, they had their existence and they went extinct. Humans will eventually go extinct at one point. It's just a fact, and that's what I believe. And in God as well. God might come on earth one day, like it says. Does say in the Bible, I'm pretty sure.
To rack up debt. At the time that this video was made,
I believe in a God.
Increased interest rates seem to have worked and inflation levels appear to be stabilizing. However, only time will tell if higher interest rates have actually stopped the United States from going into a recession. Many countries worldwide are battling this same problem and have taken precautionary measures to ensure their economies don't go into a recession. But what happens in a worst-case scenario? What if the United States or other countries do go into a recession?
If people go broke, if we go broke and we can't buy anything, right? People gonna lose jobs. The only reason people work is for money, correct, right? And we need people to work, not just for money, but we need people to work so we can have supplies, so we can have food, so we can have all this technology there. We need people to make products. So that's why the government works the way it is. It pays us to do what we have to do, because the government needs people, or the world needs people to make all these technology. The world needs people to make new phones. The world needs people to make food, because someone has to make it. And if no one's being paid to do it, no one's going to do it. No one's going to do it if they're not being paid to do it. So let's say no one gets paid, right? They're not going to do it. They'll make their own food at home, but they're not going to make food for everyone to go and buy. You feel me? So that's really how that works. If you're not getting paid, you're not going to work. And if people aren't working, even the low wage jobs, even the minimum wage, if the people ain't working those minimum jobs, someone has to do it. If not, the world will crumble. No one will. It just will go to pieces, because people need cashiers. People need people to fill up the gas stations so we can get gas. People need food. People need clothing. Without those things, they won't have anything. They'll probably make their own, but what I'm saying is, like, if they don't get paid to make stuff like that, they don't get money, they wouldn't do it at all. And that's why they built the government based off money and based off currency, because if you have money, you'll have stuff. If you don't have money, you'll have nothing. So that's why the government works the way it is.
The main concern for most people during a recession is that unemployment rates go up. As the economy slows down, companies need to lay off employees to cut costs. This means more and more people have less income to spend, which will slow down the economy even more. When people are laid off because of a recession, more pressure is put on the government to provide aid. Yet the government is also hurting financially during these times, making it difficult to lend support to the citizens. Once an economy is in a recession, things start to spiral downward. However, raising interest rates, providing support to the unemployed, and giving businesses time to recover will cause the economy to pick back up and grow again. This will bring jobs back and allow businesses to become profitable as people begin spending their money again. But what if this doesn't happen? What if the economy spirals out of control?
Yep.
This is when a depression occurs.
Great Depression
There's
too.
only been one economic depression in the United States, the Great Depression, which lasted from 1929 to 1939.
10 years, bro.
However, since these are unprecedented times, there is
The only thing that got us out of the Great Depression in the first place was World War II. Literally, people finally had jobs and was making money because they was making weapons, tanks, and all these other things and supplies, and we were selling them to other countries. That's the only reason why we got out of the Great Depression. Literally, that's facts.
There's no knowing what the economic future will hold. So what exactly is a depression, and how does it differ from recessions? Many economists agree that a depression is just a really long recession. There's no exact length of time that an economy needs to be in decline for a depression to be declared, but it typically needs to be several years. Recessions tend to last 2 or more quarters of a fiscal year, or about 6 months, but can be longer if things get really bad. During the 1973 oil crisis, when oil prices quadrupled and the stock market crashed, the U.S. economy was in a recession for about a year and 4 months. Similarly, the Great Recession of 2008 lasted around a year and a half. However, none of these periods of time are classified as depressions because they did not meet certain other criteria. A recession transitions to a depression when it lasts roughly 2 or more years. The real GDP of an economy also needs to decline by at least 10% in a single year for that time period to be considered an economic depression. Like with a recession, a key indicator that an economy is in a depression other than the dramatic lowering of GDP is high unemployment rates. However, unlike a recession, these unemployment rates continue to grow for years until the economy finally bottoms out. A byproduct of depression is that international trade tends to stall and production is dialed back as consumers both at home and abroad lose faith in the economy. The easiest way to understand
why do we have faith in the government? Why do we have faith in the economy? Why do we have faith that everything is okay? I can just lay in bed, put a blanket over me, and just have a wonderful time. Why are we okay? And why do we feel safe? Why do we trust? If you don't trust someone else with your money, why would you trust the government? Why would you trust the bank? Why would you? That's why.
Economic depression is to examine the only one that has ever happened. Like recession,
I'll trust one of my homeboys to hold one of my money before I trust the government with my money.
Of past and present, the Great Depression occurred due to a number of different factors. The first was that the U.S. economy grew tremendously.
And it's facts, because my homeboys, if I say, here, can you hold this? Don't spend it, just hold it for me. They won't. If I give it to the government and they're down bad and the government, they lose it, right? And they can't give me my money back, they won't give you your money back. If they don't have no money to give back, they won't give it back. I already said this.
And unsustainably during the Roaring 20s, it seemed as if the profits would never.
And that's what happened. The Roaring 20s was amazing time for America. I ain't gonna lie, everyone was rich, everyone was doing, but they had no consequences, and everything crashed. They were spending too much money.
Stop, which led to the masses pouring huge.
When the stock market crashed, boom, it was done for.
Amounts of money into the stock market. They would take out loans from banks.
They would take loans. Let me explain what he's about to say. They'd take loans out from banks, right? They would spend it into the stock market, right? And then sometimes they would get the money back to pay. They couldn't pay back the banks, so they couldn't pay the other banks, and because the banks were giving away too much money, the people that did have money, they couldn't receive their money, their own money back. So the banks went bankrupt. And the stock market crashed. Boom, we was done for. People that had money didn't have money. And that money is gone. You don't have no more money. You're broke. Just like everyone else was in the Great Depression.
Just so they can invest more money with their stipulation that they would pay interest on the loans using the gains from when they sold their stocks. This worked great for most of the 20s, but then everything fell apart. Banks lent out too much money that they didn't have.
Exactly what I said.
That it'd all come back with interest. It's
See?
important to remember that
what I said.
Whatever goes up must come down, even the economy. People mortgaged their homes and used all of their disposable income to buy into the stock market. In October of 1929, the stock market reached its peak and then began to cool off. This was always bound to happen as economic growth can't last forever. There's always an inevitable resettling of the stock market so that it can grow organically in the future. Unfortunately, during the 1920s, people were not thinking about the consequences of pouring all of their money and assets.
Not at all. You never spend all your money. Never. If you have $1 million, it's best to only spend $250,000. Keep the rest of the money. Best to invest that much. Only $250,000. If you want, you can invest more, but at least keep something. Don't spend all of your money. Let's say you spend spend $750,000. Just keep that $250,000. But don't spend all of your money
into an economic system that would eventually need to reset. Stock markets began to decline, and everyone began to panic. If the masses remained calm,
especially if you're an adult, bro. If you're a kid, you're a teen, and you you know, if you're a teen, that's different. But if you're like an adult and you're supposed to be responsible, bro, like what are you doing?
Didn't try to desperately pull out all their money.
See, look, exactly what I explained.
Would
Look,
eventually need to reset. Stock markets began to decline, and everyone began to panic. If the masses remained calm and didn't try to desperately pull out all their money, the crash of 1929 might have just led to a recession, but that's
so many people trying to pull out money. Everyone, literally everyone, they couldn't give everyone money because the banks didn't have enough money for everyone.
not what
That can happen any day.
happened. Banks and companies warned that if everyone withdrew all their money at once, they would default on their loans and the entire economy would fall apart. But no one listened. This would be one of the main factors that led to the Great Depression. At the same time that the stock market crashed, people lost faith in the banks themselves. They had seen
And why do we trust
bad
banks?
decisions made by the bankers when they extended loans that were not sustainable. Now people were worried that the banks would lose all their savings as well, so they started withdrawing all of their money from financial institutions. With less money in their vaults, banks defaulted on more loans, thus exacerbating the economic decline even further and extending the depression of the economy for several more years. During the Great Depression, the unemployment rate skyrocketed to almost 25%. A quarter of the country couldn't feed their families, let alone buy products or invest in the economy. This meant businesses couldn't grow and entire industries collapsed. It's estimated that the GDP fell by 30%, as United States companies struggled to produce their products and sell them within the country and abroad. And this led to another problem. As the United States economy went into free fall, it had consequences for the rest of the world.
Yep.
US citizens struggled to make